Explore life in ways dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience in the kingdom.
Lifestyle is about attitude, values, interests, and behaviors. And this is Eswatini Lifestyle, the show that shares stories of incredible people, events, businesses, and tastes that are meant to inspire Eswatini.
People.
Eswatini Lifestyle is Eswatini's premium lifestyle magazine show. We aspire to inspire.
Make no apologies for setting high standards, and remember, quality is not an act, it is a habit. Don't miss premium inspiration, drive, and swag.
It has just gone 8 o'clock Central African time. Good evening and welcome to the news bulletin at 8, brought to you by Eswatini TV. My name is Anabo Ngwana alongside Namakabiso Ngambule. Thank you so much indeed for choosing to stay with us. We're coming to you live from our Hospital Hill studios in Baban, and your top stories a date. His Majesty King Eswatini III has received and held talks with the Executive Secretary of SADC, who paid a courtesy call on His Majesty King Eswatini III at Luct residence. The Deputy Prime Minister's office says there's a need to strengthen gender-based violence prevention measures as there's a continued rise in cases. And the Eswatini Bank Managing Director Nozizwe Mlela says the bank is willing to give Eswatini the necessary assistance that will contribute towards job creation. And now the news in detail. His Majesty King Eswatini III has received and held talks with the Executive Secretary of SADC, who paid a courtesy call on His Majesty King Eswatini III at Lutt residence. His Majesty King Eswatini III addressed the nation and called on SADC to tap into its own resources for economic independence. His Majesty also assured the Executive Secretary that the Kingdom of Eswatini is fully committed to maintaining peace and stability.
The SADC Executive Secretary Elias Mahosi was received by His Majesty the King at Lutt Royal Residence, where he arrived leading a delegation from the SADC Secretariat. The Executive Secretary's visit is part of a series of working visits to consult heads of state on advancing the SADC agenda following his appointment to the helm of the Secretariat in August 2021. His Majesty the King says the SADC region must tap into its own resources for economic independence.
The region needs to look at how we mobilize within the region, our own resources, because it's very important for any organization or any region or any structure that it should be able to rely on its own, even though, of course, we appreciate support from elsewhere. But it is absolutely important that as a region we need to develop our own instrument that we can be able to use and be able to access within the region, so that these institutions can help us transform our economies. Obviously, any development could be for any country, or it could be for any region. Peace and stability is very important. And we are grateful that we are also able to share a lot of ideas and experience when it comes to these things. And as working together as a region, I think it is very important that we maintain peace and stability within our region so that our people can be able to develop whatever structure under an atmosphere of peace and stability.
The Executive Secretary says discussions with His Majesty the King resonated with the thoughts and ideas of other heads of state in the region. He said His Majesty the King updated him on the now calm political situation in the country. He further called on the nation to maintain peace and stability in the kingdom.
You've shared with us that there is now calm, there is now stability in the kingdom. It's a very pleasing and positive development, and it's just really to encourage us all as citizens of Eswatini that it is important that we maintain peace and security. There are many structures that are always available for engagement and whatever. It doesn't mean difference of opinion leads to an engagement of some sort, other than really verbal engagement where we exchange views and we all find solutions. Really, that is the tenet of SADC, peaceful engagement, peaceful discussion, and we all find solutions. This is one region that has been peaceful for many years, and it has been a model to many other regions that I'm sure we are aware around the continent. So this must be preserved, this must be nurtured. So even where we have differences, I think it's important that we find the best ways of communicating those without really arousing any ill feeling.
At Lutsitsini Royal Residence, I'm Sandile Makanya for Eswatini TV.
The Deputy Prime Minister's office says there is a need to strengthen gender-based violence prevention measures as there is a continued rise in cases. The Undersecretary Lomakhosi Dlamini said this during the review of the National Strategy and Coastal Action Plan to End Violence in the Kingdom of Eswatini in a workshop held at Pixpic Hotel.
The Deputy Prime Minister's office with the relevant stakeholders is reviewing the 2017-2022 National Strategy and Coastal Action Plan to End Violence in the country. The Undersecretary Lomakhosi Dlamini says they identified gaps in the strategy, meaning they have to scale up efforts towards prevention of gender-based violence and unequal gender relations. She continues to say more practical support is needed in building prevention systems, which include more awareness creation and training.
Sizama-ke kubuka ukuthi sesifike la sesiphela khona le strategy engabe yini lesiyifunzile yini lesingayenda kangcono ngubani longadlala liphi iqhaza nekuthi ke sikhathi sekuthi siniketane lama targets ethu nekuthendiwa ngibani la sithole khona ukuthi encenye le strategy sethu asizange siqinisa khona ngulaka prevention sithole ukuthi strategy sethu sibuketa kakhulu ku responda to my issues of violence nyalo ke nase sisibukeketa sithi cha asiqinise la ku prevention kakhulu.
United Nations Population Fund's gender specialist Piwa Manana says they support government in this initiative.
It is very important for us to support the national strategy to end violence, as we had supported it with other partners as well before, from the 2017 to 2022.
Eswatini Action Group Against Abuse Prevention Manager Gcinaphi Mlovu says gender-based violence projects need more financial support.
We want to also see how government can better position itself to pump resources into the prevention of violence in the country.
This action plan is one of many efforts by government to end gender-based violence in the country following the enactment of Prevention of Sexual Offences and Domestic Violence Act of 2018. For Eswatini TV News, Nelsi Wendlangamandla with Mbongwa Dube, Pixpic.
The Department of Water Affairs of the Ministry of Natural Resources and Energy would like to notify the public and communities of the Ngwembise River that high flows are anticipated coming through from the Republic of South Africa. As we have shared water resources with the Republic of South Africa, the anticipated rise in river flows is accounted to high winds as experienced on the 9th of October 2022, which are causing large water infrastructure to spill over its surplus flows. Communities of communities of along the Ngwembise River from Luhlelo, Lushikshini, Makayane up to confluence with the Usutu River at Strogoto are urged to be vigilant and cautious, especially at low-level breaches and marked crossings. We request that an alternative route is used for crossings as a measure to prevent loss of life. Most of the country's national dams are almost at full storage capacity. It is imperative to the public to heed to calls on vigilance near water bodies. The Department of Water Affairs will update the country on any changes to the Ngwembise and the rivers, as well as national dam level, which is standard practice in anticipation of rainy season and its impact on the already water saturated catchment. The Africa Association of Chartered Certified Accountants says there is a need to introduce accountancy at lower grades in schools in order to boost the number of professionals in the field. The head of education and development in the organization, Michael Gore, says the meeting they are currently having at Hilton Garden Inn in Mbabane is meant to discuss the state of accountancy profession in Africa and find solutions that will allow for growth of this sector in the Southern Africa region.
Accountancy is no longer about filling reams of paperwork or adding columns of numbers to an Excel spreadsheet. These sentiments were shared by Michael Gora, Head of Education and Development at the Africa Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, whilst highlighting that technology calls for modern accounting.
We want to make sure that the accountants who are already in the system, we are upskilling them to make sure that they are as digitally savvy as possible. And as far as the future generation, we want to look at the syllabus in partnership with higher education institutions and the regulators to make sure that we start developing content and exams that are future ready. That for us, I think, is the most important. A third leg is around the gap in the public sector. We saw from the report that the public sector is a major part of the economy. So we can't succeed unless we bring the public sector on board. One of the initiatives that is already ongoing is the Africa, through the Pan-African Federation of Accountants, is the Africa Professionalization Initiative, which deliberately and intentionally seeks to close the gap in the public sector. And we want to do this collectively and in country together with working with partners, especially the donor funding agencies.
Chairperson of Eswatini Accountants Associations, Makhosazana Mhlanga, says accountants upskilling is important in order to adapt to the ever-changing technology.
We are also seeing more and more demand as professional accountants, not just the financial reporting, but in balance the financial and non-financial, more like link the two. The public wants to see less and less of numbers, but more on the overall business, financial and non-financial. And that means as professional accountants, we now need to develop Laoma skills such that I'm not only telling about the numbers, but I'm bringing the whole business in my reporting. I talk more on ESG reporting, amongst others.
The Africa Association of Chartered Certified Accountants says it will work with its members to implement resolutions of the meeting. For Eswatini TV News, Nelson Langamandla with Mbongwa Dube, Mbabane.
The Royal Eswatini Police Service has condemned a group of police and correctional officers who marched to petition Cabinet on their salary restructuring on Tuesday. Through a statement released by the Chief Police Information and Communications Officer, Superintendent Pindile Vilagati, she says this behavior goes against the set standards of acceptable codes of conduct. She says this march happens at a time where government has held several meetings with the Police Staff Association and leadership on the issue of salary restructuring.
National Commissioner of Police William Tsitsibala Dlamini had invited police officers of all ranks to a meeting held at the Matsapa Police Academy on Tuesday. One of the items on the agenda was the issue of Phase 2 of the salary restructuring exercise, which affects junior ranking officers. While others were at the meeting with the NADCOM, a group of police and correctional officers marched to petition Cabinet on the salary restructuring, which dates back to 2014.
Kuthi teke usaqhubeka loyo mhlangano kwabe sekuyevakala ukuthi kunedlanzana lemaphoyisa leli bese liyashuca liyaka Prime Minister lo deliver khona i-petition.
She says as a police service they would like to state that such behavior goes against the set standards of acceptable code of conduct for its members. She also says they would like to condemn such in the strongest terms possible, as it undercuts the integrity of the Royal Eswatini Police Service and sets a bad example. She further says as a disciplined entity, the police service will ensure that those who were part of the march account for their actions by invoking the relevant organizational disciplinary regime and codes. Vilagati says the meeting resolved that the NADCOM, senior police officials and the Police Staff Association will go to different police stations to meet officers. This is to take their views on the matter with the aim of finding an amicable solution. For Eswatini TV News, Temgosima Vimbela, Mbabane.
Eswatini Bank Managing Director Nozizo Mlele says the bank is willing to give Maswati the assistance that will contribute towards job creation. Mlele says micro, medium and small businesses contribute towards the country's economy. Mlele was speaking during the SME Business Forum held in Matsapa.
In a bid to provide the much-needed service for Eswatini SMMEs, Eswatini Bank met with different businesses to find out how best can local businesses be assisted. The bank's MD, Nozizwe Mulela, encouraged entrepreneurs to provide truthful information when applying for funding.
There is no simpler way to create new jobs, eradicate poverty, increase GDP and raise the standard of living of our people than supporting entrepreneurship and supporting people who dare to start their own businesses. Every surviving and successful business means new jobs and growth of GDP. While MSMEs have the potential to contribute a lot more to economic growth and poverty reduction, currently in Eswatini, this is happening at a very slow pace, and I guess that is why we are here today, just to try and see what else is there for us to do so that we increase that pace. Now, this is a result of many factors, including socio-economic challenges that we are currently faced with as a country. However, from our point of view as a financer, one of the main challenges facing MSMEs is the lack of preparedness to access finance rather than the availability of the finance in itself.
The Director for SMEs in the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade, Mluleki Dlamini, says it is encouraging to see Emaswati showing interest in becoming entrepreneurs.
It was about 4,000 of businesses that were registered as SMEs. That was in 2010. With the Manzini leading in terms, there were 1,700 businesses. Then under the fifth scope for 2017, Manzini then had 28,000. So you can see in terms of the growth, within a period of 10 years, you've now achieved a high number in terms of increase in the number of our micro, small and medium enterprises.
Among the speakers were representatives of SADC, Business Incubation Wing, Eswatini Revenue Service under Technical Training and Taxpayer Education, as well as Center for Financial Inclusion. For Eswatini TV News, Ndomlangeni, Themba Shabango, Matsapa.
There has been an arson attack at the Limpopo University of Creative Technology. This happened on Monday night. However, the extent of the damage has not yet been quantified. LUCT Public Relations Officer Luct says this has disturbed the writing of examinations. However, students will resume writing tomorrow.
Firstly, we would like to confirm as a university, as Limpopo Eswatini, that there was indeed an arson attack at the university premises yesterday at around 12 to 1 a.m. But for now, we cannot ascertain the extent of the damage because police are still doing their investigation. But yeah, we can confirm that there was the attacks, and we had few properties that were damaged by the attacks that we had yesterday.
Disabled women from different communities working under the Vuganibo Mage project in Lobamba working on increasing their production. According to Lobamba Vuganibo Mage's chairperson, Sonia Ntimane, says they are looking to design and produce clothes for children and adults.
Business Eswatini, through the Women Wing, led by Toki Hau, provided infrastructure and working material for disabled women. The women started producing bags under the Patasako campaign. The Lobamba Vuganibo Mage project's chairperson Sonia Ntimane says the Patasako campaign increased their sales, although lately business is not going well. Ntimane says they are planning on producing cushions that are currently making sales. Ntimane says going forward, they plan on producing clothes for all ages. She says that they hope to also produce clothing that are in demand at a particular season.
Sifiso sethu msakade ukuthi sikhicite nje konke nakutapsika sakhe mhlambe emapoloneki emasweater sakhe nabo into letiningi temakhate ke kakhulu kule season lephelile ebusika sizamile kwakha ema tracksuit nemapoloneki sayibona imali yakhona kepha ke sakha ngana imaterial esitwa ngayo ngumakethoki leta vele yenele leti mpahlanyana letincane tebantwana besingafisa ukuthi inkosi nayo ingasipha imali sike nathi sesihambe noma siya kubojozi kubothekwini siyolanza imaterial lenkulu lapho sitawukhicita khona timpahla tanoma ngibani netebantu labadzala sikhicite.
Ntimane says while they are working, there are a number of challenges such as the fact that they connect power at the Inkundla infrastructure which limits their production somehow. Ntimane revealed that they need assistance in as far as sourcing materials is concerned. Thuli Mkhabela, one of the women who work in Lobamba, says being part of the Vuganibo Mage project has been helpful as she has been able to put food on the table. Organizations and individuals who may wish to assist the women can contact 76624938. For Eswatini TV News, Sondomlangeni, Themba Shabangu, Lobamba.
In an effort to ensure good hygiene for communities, Water Aid is currently training healthcare motivators on this subject in a workshop held at Pixpic Hotel. The Policy and Advocacy Coordinator Babazile Pembe says good personal hygiene is one of the essential steps towards protection from diseases, hence they conducted the workshop.
The healthcare motivators trained on good health hygiene by Water Aid are expected to share this knowledge with their communities. Policy and Advocacy Coordinator Babazile Pembe explains more about the training.
The goal of this training today is to try by all means to bring about change in terms of realizing the value add or the benefits of the infrastructure that government and Water Aid and other WASH partners have actually invested in water supply systems and in sanitation systems. Why are we doing that? It's because there's been a research that was conducted whereby we realized that we are not getting any investment from this infrastructure, and that is alluded to the issues of improper hygiene practices or unsustainable hygiene behaviors.
Tubelihle Gadlela, a healthcare motivator, says the knowledge they gained will help their communities.
Ngikuthandze kakhulu kulokho lesikufundzile. Ngithandzela ukuthi bathi bothishela bethu isikhathi lesiningi asikwende lento singakukhulumi. Vele nje ngisho ukuthi kuyasita kakhulu singimanga.
Water Aid works with government in different hygiene projects including sanitation. For Eswatini TV News, Nelson Langamandla with Mbongwa Dube, Pixpic.
With that, let's take a look at our financial indicators and see how markets performed today in our financial report.
Bank.
it can be.
Welcome back. You're still with the News Bulletin at 8, and now for our sports news. Under-20 national team have increased their chances of qualifying for the semi-finals of this year's Under-20 COSAFA tournament after their 7-0 victory against Mauritius. Eswatini will now wait for the results from Group B and Group C to know their future in the tournament.
The Under-20 national team faced Mauritius in their third game of Group A of this year's Under-20 COSAFA tournament. Eswatini came to the game looking for both 3 points and also more goals in order to increase their chances of qualifying to the next stage, which is the semi-finals of the tournament. It all went accordingly to the young boys as they were able to net 7 goals. Action that will determine Eswatini's qualification continue on Wednesday in Group B and in Group C. For Eswatini TV Sports, Fabrice Msonera, Bavani.
Vice Secretary of the Eswatini Volleyball Association, Nobuhle Nkambule, says plans of reintroducing beach football in the country are already underway with a new facility located at Sbebe Resort. Beach volleyball was last played locally prior to COVID-19 at the Thames Water World in Strogoto.
Eswatini Volleyball Association has started different programs of reintroducing beach volleyball sports in the country.
We had people beach volleyball.
According to the association's Vice Secretary Nobuhle Lamini, the association has been privileged to get a facility based at Sbebe Resort that will mostly be used for local competitions. Lamini says recently the country took part of an international competition, which proved that it was high time the country brought the sport back. Beach volleyball was last active in the country over 2 years ago, prior to COVID-19, where Water World venue at Strogoto was the main venue. For Eswatini TV Sports, Fabrice Msonera, Bavani.
Well, with those sports news, we've hit the home stretch of our news bulletin at 8 at Eswatini TV. But before we go, here's a quick recap of our news making headlines tonight. His Majesty King Mswati III has received and held talks with the Executive Secretary of SADC, who paid a courtesy call on His Majesty King Mswati III at Lutsitsini residence. The Deputy Prime Minister's office says there's a need to strengthen gender-based violence prevention measures as there's a continued rise in cases. And the Eswatini Bank Managing Director, Nozizwe Mlela, says the bank is willing to give Maswati the necessary assistance that will contribute towards job creation. Beautiful Kingdom of Eswatini, that's all we had for you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much indeed for choosing to stay with us. We shall now cross over to the Weather Center for a detailed weather report from us and the rest of the team at Eswatini TV. For now, it's good night and God bless.